Hey, what's up, everybody? True Boxing here. Thank you for coming back to Get Hit with the Truth. So today we are doing the January boxing schedule. I'm going to discuss the fights that you can see in January, where you can see them, and I will give a list of the best cards, which there isn't many, and the top 5 fights, which I barely was able to get 5. So before we get into that, if you could smash the like button, leave a comment, or subscribe to the channel. I really do appreciate any and all support that I can get as I continue to build my channel here. So again, January is not going to have a loaded month of boxing. It's kind of a weak month, but there are a couple standout fights that you do want to tune into. So starting off on Wednesday, January 8th, on DAZN, you got Jai Opetaia defending his IBF Cruiserweight Championship of the World at 200 pounds when he battles undefeated but little known David Nyika. It was supposed to be a mandatory defense against Hussein Sin Cara, but instead Sin Cara had to pull out with an injury, so Nyika is stepping in, and that's how we're going to kick off the year, with the #1 cruiserweight in the world battling an undefeated contender on the rise. So that should be interesting. Again, that's on DAZN on January 8th. We'll get into the fight a little bit more as we get going. January 11th, Callum Simpson and Steed Woodfall. Also, Caroline Dubois and Jessica Kamara. Those fights aren't big fights. That's just what's on the schedule. But January 17th, UFC Fight Pass is an interesting featherweight battle when Omar Trinidad takes on a veteran Mike Plania. This is a good battle right here at 126, as Trinidad, an undefeated contender on the rise, is trying to make a name for himself. I'll get into that fight again in a little bit here. Then we will go to, also that night on January 17th, the WBO World Championship for the women, the junior bantamweight title, Mizuki Hiruta battles Maribel Ramirez. You got Thursday, January 23rd, Eric Priest and Tyler Howard on DAZN. But the next one, Friday, January 24th on ESPN, you got the monster. Naoya Inoue will make the next defense of his undisputed super bantamweight world title at 122 when he battles undefeated mandatory challenger Sam Goodman. Goodman is the mandatory in both the IBF and the WBO. We'll get into that fight in a little bit as well. Also that night on ProBox TV, Najee Lopez battles Lenin Castillo. On the 25th, on DAZN, you got Ellie Scottney is battling Maya Motu in a women's title fight. Also that day on DAZN, you got Dalton Smith. He is going to return to take on Waleed Uwiza in a 140-pound battle right there. We'll get into that one in a little bit. Also that day on DAZN, you're going to see Diego Pacheco battling Steven Nelson in a good battle, a battle of undefeated super middleweights. And then closing out the month on DAZN, on a Friday night, you got George Ladard against Derek Osaze. And that's how we close out the month. So again, not a very strong month of boxing at all. In terms of the best fight cards, I mean, you can argue I would say number 2 would be the January 25th DAZN card with Diego Pacheco, Steven Nelson, and I think it's the guy's name is Alberto Mercado, I think, is on the undercard, battling somebody. We'll get into that in a minute. I got to pull up the card real quick. But, definitely not a huge month of boxing. Ernesto Mercado, undefeated 140-pounder, is battling former 2-division champion, veteran gatekeeper Jose Pedraza. So that's an interesting one. Also, Andy Cruz on the undercard against Omar Salcido. I would probably say that's the best fight card of the month. But anyway, what's his name? Goodman with the Jin Sasaki fight as the co-feature should be good as well. So now we're going to look at the top 5 fights of the month. And just kind of go in order of which fights are the most important. I would say number 5 for me is a tie between Ernesto Mercado and Jose Pedraza fighting at 140 on January 25th on DAZN. That's the co-feature. It'd be that one and the Omar Trinidad Mike Planilla fight. You got two undefeated fighters trying to make a name for themselves against solid veterans. Pedraza is a former 2-division champ for Mercado at 140, and 140 is a division to make a statement at, and if he could blast through Pedraza at 140, that would make a statement. And then Omar Trinidad and Mike Planilla at 126, if Omar Trinidad wastes him, considering he's ranked so high, and I think that one's a little bit higher than Mercado because Omar Trinidad's ranked number 2 in one of the governing bodies right now. If he can go out there and blast through veteran Mike Planilla, that'll put him higher up the food chain. The number 3 fight on the month is the main event of the January 25th, or the number 4 fight, I'm sorry, is the main event of the of one of the January 25th cards when Dalton Smith battles Waleed Uiza in a 140-pound battle. Dalton Smith ranked up there at 140. He's trying to get a push into the loaded top 10. He defeated Jose Zepeda last year, the former 3-time world title challenger, knocked him out, and now wants to keep the ball rolling, taking on little-known Waleed Uiza. So that one's the number 4 fight on the month. The number 3 fight is a good one. Diego Pacheco battling veteran Steven Nelson, but both guys undefeated and trying to punch through into potentially the top 5. I think the winner of this fight could find himself a top 5 spot at 168 right now. Diego Pacheco, 6'4", the big guy, he's young, taking on the crafty veteran that's trained by Bomac and fights out of the Crawford camp, Steven Nelson. This is going to be a lot better bout than people are giving it credit for, and I'm really looking forward to this bout. That's the number 3 fight of the month for January 2025. Number 2, I'm going with Jai Opetaia and David Nyika for the IBF Cruiserweight Championship of the World at 200 pounds. Jai Opetaia is the number 1 cruiserweight in the world, taking on an undefeated fighter. Jai is an entertaining guy you want to watch, and he has the projected showdown with Gilberto Ramirez to unify belts later in the year, potentially on the table. He wants to keep the ball rolling on that. He's got to get through Nyika to do it, and it should be a good one. That's January 8th on DAZN. But the fight of the month, the number 1 fight of January, is easily the Naoya Inoue Sam Goodman fight that's going to be for the undisputed Super Bantamweight Championship of the World at 122, as Inoue will fight the undefeated 2 division mandatory in Sam Goodman, who's the mandatory for the IBF and the WBO right now. This is a pretty good sized fight right here, even though Inoue is a heavy favorite. He is fighting a legitimate top contender who wants to, make a splash himself in Sam Goodman. Should be a good one. I'm really looking forward to seeing these 2 guys in action. And that's it. That's what I got. That is my January boxing schedule for January 2025. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, smash the like button, leave a comment, or subscribe to the channel. I appreciate any and all support. This is True Boxing. You've been hit with the truth.